Why should the rich and powerful say, please cut our throats?
So do you think, because perhaps the stronger force than a libertarian socialist or anarchist force in modern day society that one might tap into is a more authoritarian socialist streak represented by people like Corbyn or Bernie Sanders? Do you think those are realistic possibilities through which we can solve the issues, or do you think the only way forward is simply through the Stimson doctrine of bribing business?
I think that movements like Corbyn and Sanders are very important ways to mitigate the worst crimes, set the stage for something better, deal with the imminent crises. And they're under sharp attack. Corbyn is a very striking case. He did try, he's a very decent person, tried to create a Labor Party that would be participatory, that would answer to the needs of its constituents, working people, poor, suffering, people abroad in trouble. As soon as he got started, especially after his great success in 2017, sharply raising the labor vote, the whole establishment tried to destroy him. In the case of Bernie Sanders, it wasn't that extreme, but sort of similar. The Democratic National Committee, Clinton run basically, corporate oriented, the media, pretty much the same. They tried to destroy him. They didn't succeed. He's still there. And the movement had some effect. But of course, that's going to happen. Why should the rich and powerful say, please cut our throats? They're not going to. They fight a constant, bitter class war. And if they're allowed to do it by themselves, they win. So you have to try. In fact, Thatcher and Reagan understood this very well, or whoever did their thinking for them. The first act of both of them was to attack the labor movement, try to undermine and destroy the labor movement. That's the main line of defense that people have in class war. So get rid of it. They attacked the educational system too. In the United States, public education has been under sharp attack for 40 years. Makes sense. You want a passive, ignorant population, not people who can think or talk to each other, get together. So let's get rid of critical thinking in the schools. Teach to test, worst kind of way. Defund the schools, try to get rid of them. All of this makes perfect sense for class war, but you have to understand it and try to counter it. And people like Corbyn and Sanders could have made a positive move forward. Sanders, to some extent, did. If you take a look at Biden's programs, they're not great by any means, but there are good elements to them. They come out of Bernie Sanders' office in the Senate Budget Committee, and that comes from activism on the ground, like the Sunrise Movement, who sat in congressional offices, got some support from young congressional representatives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who came in on the Sanders wave. So they were able to have some effect, led to the Sanders program, which were cut back, of course, sharply, but something remained. That's what in the real world, that's what you have to do. If there was more public support, could go beyond. And you can think of many concrete things. Take the example of the 2008 housing financial crisis. It's a major crisis. One of the things that happened during that crisis was that the Obama administration basically nationalized the auto industry. It's a huge industry. The government sort of bought it out. Well, there were a couple of options at that point. One option was to return it to bail out the perpetrators of the crisis, the banks, and made predatory loans and so on, hand the auto industry back to its former owners, maybe a couple of different faces, have them go ahead producing exactly what we don't need, oversized cars and trucks to cause massive traffic jams and pollute the atmosphere. That was one possibility, the one that was taken. There was another possibility. The other possibility would be, okay, we basically nationalize the auto industry. Let's turn it over to the workforce and communities, have them produce what we need, like cheap mass transportation. That was not contemplated. Why? Because of the failure of the left. There was no popular movement advocating for that. Would have been accepted by a large part of the workforce. Wasn't there. Well, that goes back to the answer to your question. If it's there, things can get done. If it's not there, they won't.